big question is brick and mortar offices coming back? Are we going to see sales move back to brick and mortar? And because, what we talk about here is sales people, right? We're talking about inspiring salespeople, driving salespeople, helping sales. So we're going to keep this in the sales category arena. Hello, everybody. It's Sean Moudry. We're back for another, I don't know what you call this, round episode, but we got a great topic today. And the question that we got today is, hey, are brick and mortar offices going to come back after the pandemic? And so we're going to cover this topic probably in some pretty significant detail today. And coming to us from Cairo, Egypt, as always, is Mo. How are you, Mo?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sean, for asking. I'm good. How about yourself?
Good, man. Good.
Cool.
Beautiful day here. Beautiful
Nice.
day. So obviously, the pandemic has changed some things, worldwide, right? I mean, how has the pandemic affected Cairo? What's going on out there?
Basically, similar to what's going on in the US, unemployment, Zoom meetings,
Yeah.
basically relatively the same things.
Yeah, I got a question for you. Are you planning after this, are you going to plan on going back to work in an office?
Oh, hell no. No.
No?
No.
No? I'm assuming you're recording from your living room, your bedroom, somewhere in your house,
Yeah.
right? I know both of us, occasionally you hear a dog barking in the background, right? So we're working from home,
Yeah.
which used to be, right? You take just 2 years ago and it would be so offensive, right?
Yeah.
To be on a
Yeah.
professional call and have a dog bark.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And today, it's just so acceptable, right? People have their kids in the background. They've got their dogs going on. They got people walking in the room, walking behind them. I saw the Today Show, and Al Roker was doing the Today Show from his kitchen. And his kids were coming in the kitchen and opening the fridge to make cereal while he's doing his forecast.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's changing things. So the big question is brick and mortar offices coming back? Are we going to see sales move back to brick and mortar? And because, what we talk about here is sales people, right? We're talking about inspiring salespeople, driving salespeople, helping sales. So we're going to keep this in the sales category arena because obviously we could talk about retail. We could talk about restaurants. We could talk about all kinds of different industries. Let's just stay focused today on sales. So specifically, if you're selling hazard insurance, if you're selling financial services, if you're selling real estate, if you're selling mortgage, what are the reasons for brick and mortar to survive? And will it survive? Is it going to make a comeback in 2021 and after the pandemic? That's the question we're going to solve today. So to get started with this, first thing I want to kind of cover is the obvious decline that we were already seeing prior to the pandemic. If you go back 20 years, this is my 27th year in real estate. 27 years. I got my real estate license when I was 21, but I got my Carlton Sheets tapes, How to Buy Houses, No Money Down at 19. So I've been in real estate 27 years in this industry. And when I first started in this industry, when you met with a client, you met them at your office. So your office was super important, right? In fact, I remember not only was your office important, it was important the car that you drove and where you parked your car in the parking lot because of what you were representing to our customers. So believe it or not, my managing broker, we got priority parking based on the vehicle we drove.
Wow. Isn't that racist?
Cars are not a race. Cars are not a protected class. No, so I kid you not. I used to drive a Toyota Land Cruiser, and it was a beautiful truck. I loved it, right? But it didn't it wasn't super posh or whatever. And he came out one day and he says, hey, you're one of the top salespeople in the whole company. You should really drive a really nice car, like a BMW. You should go buy a BMW. And sure enough, I went out and bought a 540 BMW, top of the line. It was $63,000 back in 2000. Think of how much money that was back in 2000.
Wow.
And for that, I got to park in the front row.
Oh, yeah. You got the prize.
That's right. So back in the day, customers would come to the office, right? Because you know what? We didn't have, customers didn't have fax machines in their home. We certainly didn't have high-speed internet and the ability to PDF emails and send things back and forth. So customers came in and we met with them. We gave our presentations in the office. Sometimes we go to their house, but if we could get them to the office, it was super efficient. And so our office and a presentation of our office was really, really important to the real estate brokerage industry. And I'm sure that's the same. I mean, I can't speak to it, but I'm sure that's the same for financial services, right? If you're selling mutual funds, life insurance, health, or term life insurance or whole life insurance, any of those type of things, hazard insurance and property casualty insurance, super important then for you to have an office to meet your clients in. Now, since then, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, with the improved technology, high-speed access on our phones, we started to see a shift with the sales industry too, because so even prior to that, the customers didn't need to come in because we might be able to email them something, they could print it and fax it back to the office, so we had less of a need for the customer to come in. But us as salespeople still had to come to the office because our high-speed copy machines, our printing machines, the high-speed internet was still at the office. Our phones weren't capable necessarily of sending mass amounts of data. There weren't really contract software programs where you could sign online, right? Like you do today. I mean, who would have thought 10 years ago you would sign with your finger? Like, right? Like, remember that? Yeah. I mean, I remember the first time I got a checking account and I wrote my signature for my checking account. And then every time I wrote a check, I had to make sure my signature was exactly the same, right? Today we're like, squiggle. That's my signature. Really? That's your signature? It looks like a worm trying to eat an ant. Like, what is going on?
Okay, since everyone right now knows Sean's signature, let's go ahead to the bank and try to match Sean's signature.
You got to know how many ants the worm is trying to eat, though. So that's the secret to the signature. So what we started to see already over the past 5 years is a decline in salespeople needing to come to the office to do their job effectively. Okay, so they didn't necessarily need to come in anymore. They had the resources available at their home. They have the technology available at their home. Frankly, they have the technology available right here on their phone, right? Like it didn't even matter if they're home or not. Their technology was right there in their hand.
Yeah.
So we were already seeing a decline in office usage prior to the pandemic. In fact, in 2018, with my real estate brokerages, I was leasing out probably close to 20,000 square feet, right, in office space, and I bet you we were using 4,000 of it, right? Between the 4 office locations that we had. Yeah, we had these big, beautiful offices. They were super impressive. Oh, yeah, ooh, ah. But nobody was. I tell you what, if there wasn't a team meeting going on or some kind of event, those offices were empty. They were empty. So now the difference, though, was we tried to do our team meetings virtually back then. Zoom's been around a while, right? When was the first time you saw Zoom, Mo? When was the first time that you?
Mid 2019, I think.
Mid 2019. So you were late to the Zoom game, dude.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed in that answer.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm late to many things here in Egypt.
I mean, you're the technical guy in this relationship. Like, you're really letting me down right now. Like, you got to step it up, man.
Okay,
You
I
know?
learned faster. Does that work?
Oh, there you go. That's fair. Okay. You got exposed to it later, but you learned faster. That's fair. So we initially started using Zoom, literally in like late 2017, 2018. And we tried to have our team meetings in order to engage more participation, get the agents to come into the office to engage with or not to come into the office, but to get them to come to the team meetings and engage more. We started offering our team meetings on Zoom, right? But then what we were running into was poor Zoom etiquette, right? Which was, we're running a team meeting. We've got some people in the room, some people on Zoom, and there's always somebody on Zoom where you're seeing this, right? Going on. And there's a dog barking in the background. You're like, honey, did you turn off the coffee pot? Okay. And it's interrupting your team meeting.
Or someone in the
they
toilet.
Didn't understand how to mute, right? And they didn't understand. Some of them didn't even know they were on camera.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we had this one woman, and the whole time we're just looking at her chest, and she's got her shirt like totally buttoned down like this, and we're just looking at her cleavage the whole team meeting. The whole team meeting. So we put a stop to it. We were like, hey, the technology's there, but the people aren't ready yet. They're not ready.
Yeah.
The people, they're not ready.
It's right now, it's the new normal, but back then it wasn't.
So here's what the pandemic did. The pandemic brought the people up to speed with the available technology. That's the number one thing it did. And it did it because it forced them to.
Yeah,
right?
certainly.
I think I heard a statistic that they said that the pandemic advanced technology, or this move to technology, by 2 years. I disagree. I think it was for my industry in real estate, where the average real estate agent is like 55 years old. Okay. Average real estate agent.
Wow.
I don't know in your industry. Financial services is probably pretty much the same. Hazard insurance, those kind of things is probably the same. Car sales, probably a little bit younger, right? But for our industry, it moved it up probably 5 years, right? It probably moved 5 years up in the, because some of these people were never going to learn Zoom. They were never going to do it, right?
Yeah.
This is scary.
I know.
So it advanced the people. It trained people to use it. It forced them into using it, right? It not only forced the agents, the salespeople, but it also forced the companies to advance too. So for some companies, brokerages or companies alike, they weren't ready to move forward. They weren't ready to advance and upgrade their systems, but it forced them to, right? They were forced in doing it. They were forced to spend the money. They were forced to train their people. All those things were forced into happening because of the pandemic, okay? So we just have to make sure that we're acknowledging, number one, that the trend was already going in the direction of as a reduced need for office space. Number two, what was preventing that trend from happening quicker was the reluctance for people to engage and the reluctance for businesses to invest the capital into the advancement of that, right? So there was two things that were blocking that. And the only thing that the pandemic changed is it removed those two barriers, right? It removed those two barriers. Beyond that, nothing's really changed. I mean, in my industry, it really hasn't changed much. I mean, the consumers are more open to getting on Zoom now, which is pretty cool. Like prior, customers didn't really want to Zoom with you. Now they're open to it, but they still don't always love it, right? A phone call still works pretty well. So it really just kind of eliminated those two barriers. Do you agree with that? Or did I miss anything?
Yeah, and actually, we both of us did go through that in your business. Remember,
Yeah.
when we were initially trying to make the appointments virtually, it worked for some people, and others were like, "Oh, I just didn't know how to set it up. So, are you okay with a phone call?"
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we totally dealt with that, right?
Yeah,
So getting people to be acceptable to a Zoom or phone call. And what do we do now is we ask them, what do you
yeah,
prefer? Like,
yeah.
wait, what do you want us to do? We'll do whatever you're comfortable with. So next is to start looking at what our options are, because if brick and mortar is on the decline and we're going to start seeing less usage of the offices over time, I think that that's a pretty obvious assumption.
Mm.
So what are the options? Do you just pack up your desks and close your office? If you run a real estate brokerage or an insurance company, do you just pack up and close your office and go virtual, right? Is that the best option? Well, what we got to do is we got to look at virtual, because I'll tell you, a lot of the assumptions is that virtual is less expensive to operate.
Yes.
But from my experience, it's really not that much less expensive to operate. Why is that? Do you know?
No.
Because Zoom doesn't solve all your problems. And Slack isn't capable of doing that either.
Yeah.
So in a sales industry, the challenge is your salespeople need service and they need response, right? So if you're doing mortgage and you need to get in touch with your processor, Slack probably isn't the most capable way to do that. And Zoom isn't always super effective either. So what people are doing is they're purchasing software or developing software in order to solve this virtual infrastructure of it feeling like you're in an office, right? So in the real estate industry, there's a company called EXP, right? EXP Realty. It's the fastest growing real estate brokerage currently in America. And it's a total virtual company. Well, they purchased their software, Verbella, for $11 million. And what Verbella allows you to do is you create an avatar, kind of like playing the video game Minecraft, right? And you can go talk to other people's avatars, right? And this is a way that they're trying to create this experience of running into people coincidentally while walking through the office, right? And it really does do that. Like you're walking around what they call the world, okay? They call it the world, and you bump into other people because their name's above their head and they're, dressed a certain way with their caricature.
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
You've got to Google it, man. It's going to blow your mind. The challenge, though, with virtual is it's not cheap. It's not cheap to build those infrastructures. And right now, Zoom and Slack are not an adequate replacement, in my opinion, for what we call spontaneous interactions, right? Human beings, we need spontaneous interactions. We need to be able to go into the office and just casually start a conversation with somebody that says, hey, I ran into this person and they said, try this, and this led to this success. And you go, wow, that's great. And that gives us inspiration and drive. We run into somebody and they say, hey, I had this successful week this week and I sold 5 widgets, and that excites us. And then we want to go sell 5 widgets. So those spontaneous interactions drive us, right? Those help us. That help us grow. They help us experience new things. They help us prevent boredom, right? As opposed to literally sitting in your house 5 days a week, talking to yourself about, what do you think you should do this week? I don't know. What do you think you should do? I think we should do what we did last week. That'll be great.
Yeah.
You're so great. Right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the lack of those spontaneous interactions, for those of us that fall on an extroverted spectrum, right, that like and to some level need other human interaction, and I'll even bring it to another level, which is affirmational acceptance of other people saying, hey, you look nice today, or you did a good job there. Those of us that need those things, like I say, I'm like a golden retriever, man. You got to pet me, right? If you don't pet me, I'm going to leave and go to the neighbor. Like, I'm out of here, right? So,
that's a nice shirt that you're wearing right now.
That's right. See? So those kind of interactions are very hard to do virtually. Okay, that's the trap. And if you look at what's happening with the culture of Zoom, right? You've been on a Zoom meeting with a group of people recently, right?
Yes.
I taught a class yesterday. I kid you not. 100 registrations to this class. 100. 57 people showed up. 57 people on this class. How many of them had their camera on?
I don't know, 5 maybe?
5.
Oh, really?
That's it. Out of 57 people on a class. Now, of course, my brain goes to this. Are they even there? Did they just turn it on and leave? Am I like CNN? It's just playing and I'm muted.
Am I talking to myself?
Am I talking to myself? Now, I'll tell you, as a trainer and a coach and a business leader and an entrepreneur, it's draining to run a sales team that way. Like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. Okay, guys, what are we going to do? Crickets.
Yeah, that's true. I've been there. Yeah.
Oh, horrible.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, yes, virtual is functional. It's functional. It works. Okay. Number one is it's expensive. Okay. It's expensive. And for some of us, we lack the engagement and the spontaneity. So for me personally, I'm looking forward to office interaction again. Right. And I'm looking forward to that. So then number two is we've got to think about, okay, virtual is not the option. Then what is the need for brick and mortar? Is there still a need for brick and mortar? Because isn't there and I don't want to misquote this saying, but isn't there a saying that says before you tear down a fence, know why it was built? Like, isn't that like a proverb? Have you heard that proverb?
Nope.
No, but it's a good one, right? I mean, before you go tearing down a fence, know why they built the damn fence. Maybe there's a Rottweiler on the other side of that fence, right? And you're like, oh, we don't need that, right? We don't know, right? So I'll tell you, you've never been to Florida, right?
Oh, yeah. Hopefully soon I will.
Dude, if you drive between Fort Myers, Florida and Fort Lauderdale, there's a highway that goes, there's nothing there. It's kind of like, I think they call it the Everglades, right? It's kind of like swampland, okay? You're driving down the highway, and on each side of the highway are these 12-foot chain link fences with barbed wire that sticks out this way. For 200 miles, you're driving, and there's this fence. And the whole time you're thinking, what's behind the fence? Right? Are they trying to prevent us from going in to that area? Like, is that like a protected area? Or is there a prison on the other side and they're trying to keep the prisoners from attacking the people on the road, right? And so you're kind of like, what is this fence for? But the barbed wire is facing away from the road into the field. And then as you're driving, a sign comes up that says, caution, crocodiles crossing the road.
Wow.
The fence is 12 feet tall to prevent the crocodiles from jumping over the fence and getting on the road. Now, if you're from Colorado or Cairo, Egypt, where you don't have crocodiles wandering around, and you move to Florida, you might cut a hole in that fence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, out of curiosity, yeah.
Yeah, you'd say, why is this fence here? We don't need this fence. And you cut that fence down.
Yeah.
And then you get eaten by a 12-foot crocodile. So that's where the quote comes from. Before you take down the fence, it's a Florida quote.
Yeah, that makes sense now.
Take down a fence. Know why somebody put the stupid fence there. Okay. So there's some reasons why you're going to need a brick and mortar in the future. There's still a reason why you may need a brick and mortar. Number one reason is your state might require it. A lot of sales positions, a lot of companies are state regulated, and the state requires you to have a physical business location so customers can go visit you and or so they can come inspect you, right? So there are some state requirements, like if you pull credit reports, right? In most of America, if your company pulls credit reports, you have to have a physical business location in order to pull credit reports. You can't just say, here's my home address. I want to pull people's credit reports. They want to see a physical business location. For real estate brokerages have to have a physical location within the state that they're operating in, at least in the state of Colorado. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a business location. It can be your residence, but it has to be a physical location. It can't be a PO box, right? So that's number one, is you might need an office because of state requirements. Number two is new training, new people. It is extremely difficult to train new people virtually, right? I mean, you and I do a lot of virtual training, right? We do a lot of virtual training, and we do small group training where it's almost one-on-one. It's literally almost one-on-one. And even that is about pushing the limit on maintaining engagement, right? So you could imagine if you're running a sales business and you're training new people, and let's say you're bringing in 5 new people a month to train them up, and you're doing that virtually, what's the likelihood that this person's going to be successful? Like 20%? Like
yeah,
10%?
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's low. It's low because they're not getting that energy. They're not getting engaged. They're not having those spontaneous interactions with other people. They're not developing relationships with the other salespeople in the office. They can't emulate the top producers in the office. They can't see other top producers and going, oh, I noticed Jim is the number one person in the office, and Jim's here every day at 8:30, and Jim stays till 5 o'clock every day. And Jim makes 100 phone calls every single day, and Jim gives great customer service, and Jim dresses professionally. They don't have that opportunity to see that, to emulate that, to have the success that person has. Instead, they sit at home and they go, I wonder how Jim's so successful. Right? So, I mean, we were talking about, you and I were talking before about, your children emulate what you do. They don't listen to what you say, right? You can say don't smoke cigarettes, but if you're sitting there smoking cigarettes, your kid's probably going to smoke cigarettes. Like,
I did it. I admit I did it. I'm guilty.
So the other reason is even though the need for brick and mortar is on a decline, there's still going to be a certain demographic of people, salespeople, that want to or must work from the office due to their personality style. Maybe they like getting dressed and feeling professional and going somewhere, or maybe they're in a situation where they got young kids and it's just not convenient to work from home, right? Or they might have a spouse who works from home too, and they're both trying to talk in the same room, right? Like that happens to me all the time. So there are still gonna be a certain demographic of salespeople that are gonna need a shared or private office to function from. Right, to function. You're going to need that. And then lastly, I would say is, this isn't lastly. I've got some more. So I thought I was done, but I'm looking at my notes here and I've got more. Culture, right? So culture. Where does culture come from? Culture comes from our practicing the culture, the mission, the vision, and the values of the company. right? It comes from us showing the actions of doing that. That's what culture is. And so if other people aren't seeing what your actions are, they're not developing the company culture. So it's really hard to develop company culture in a virtual world. Not to say that it's impossible, but I worked in a company that was virtual for over a year. It was hard. Like, what is our culture? What are we about? What are we supposed to be doing every day? What do we stand for as an industry? What the hell are we doing? Right? That's really hard. Deliverable of services, right? So what do you think, like right now, Mo, of customer service? Do you think since the pandemic, customer service has gone up? Do you feel like that customer service is better, or do you feel like it's declined?
Yeah. This is my part right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way I see it is the reason behind the decline of customer service, and I don't want to say that this is happening with almost every company, but I would say that it is something that is extremely happening to a lot of companies. Okay, so the reason behind it is because currently most agents are working from home. They have their own equipment that are provided by the company and whatnot, and the reason behind the decline is that because they are feeling that they are not being watched. I'm sitting in my home right now, and I'm having a conversation on the phone with one customer or something, despite the fact that there is quality assurance that exists specifically to try to decrease that. But the thing is, look at the ratio right now and compare it when you were in the office. The ratio right now is way bigger, and the reason behind it is because this kind of feeling that I'm not watched. I can do whatever I want. I was speaking with one of my friends recently, and he's still at Vodafone, and he just mentioned to me that he was speaking with a client, and this customer, he was trying to do some kind of troubleshooting steps with him, and basically the customer said, no, I'm not going to do anything, and he replied with, okay, yeah, same here, I'm not going to tell you anything either.
This was his response. And here with the group, your background is in customer service.
Yeah.
Doing that side of things. And I totally agree. I think, like, even going to a restaurant right now, which you would think, like, going to a restaurant, like, we're on limited capacity. Restaurants can go to 25%. So, my wife and I will go out to dinner about once a week. And you go to a restaurant and there's, a quarter of the people in there, and your service is worse than if the thing was packed to 110%.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing that's occurring right now. So service, right, tends to be better when we're interacting face to face with people. I don't know what caused the pandemic. I don't know if it's the fact that we're wearing masks, people don't smile as much. I don't know. I'm not.
I can tell you the reason that I think behind the decline in the face-to-face customer service also. If you think about this, you mentioned that you're currently on the limited capacity of 25%, right? So if you think about a learning curve in your mind, if you are on 100% capacity, this means that you are interacting with more people, while when you are interacting with only 25% of the people that it used to be, now the learning curve is kind of on the decline because you're doing less of what you're always doing, and therefore I don't want to say like your skills, but you kind of forgot some core things that you should be doing, right?
Yep. Yeah. And I'll say this, I'll just throw this out there too, is if you're in sales and you have an operations side of your business, maybe you have a processor, you have an assistant or a marketing person or whatever it is, and you're in the office, you don't walk up to their desk. Well, I don't walk up to their desk and say, I need this by 10 o'clock, right? But your email comes across that way, right? When you send an email and you're not interacting with them, they're like, this person is super bossy and they're not polite to me and they aren't treating me well. When it doesn't have anything to do with that, other than the fact that you're just not, you just haven't been interacting with them the way that they're used to interacting face to face, right?
Yes.
We're just much more engaging face to face. Oh, you look nice today. How's it going? How's your wife, right? Like, and then an email,
Even
we
the
don't
tone,
do that.
the tone of voice, the tone of how we are communicating with people, it differs, and it's really hard to communicate your tone in text. You can try to capitalize some letters and stuff, but it won't be as impactful as voice,
That's
or
right.
especially face to face. You also have body language in face to face, so that makes a total difference too.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if every time you needed something, you had to pop on Zoom and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And like interact as if you were face to face with them.
I'll kill myself. I
Oh,
won't
it'd be
do
brutal.
so. Yeah.
But we naturally do it when we're working in an office environment, right?
Yeah.
We naturally, now you don't do it all day long in every interaction, but you
It's
don't start
easier.
off the day like
Yeah.
super harsh,
Yeah.
right? So then the last thing that you might want an office, you might want to keep an office moving forward is to brand and create your image, right? So one thing that an office or brick and mortar can do for you is it can create an image and a brand. So a really strategically placed office, in Boulder, Colorado, my real estate brokerage was in this cute Victorian so as soon as you drove into Boulder, it didn't matter. If you were coming to Boulder, you drove right by my office, right? And I would be teaching in New Jersey, right, all the way across the United States in New Jersey. And I'd say, hey, I'm in Boulder, Colorado. I own this real estate company. Here's a name. And people go, I've seen that office, right? Because it's literally, you had to drive by it to get into Boulder, right? And so, and I had this cute little VW bus out front and green colors, and it was right there. So what did that create? Is it created image and branding, right? It created some status for me, like, hey, this is who you are. So if your office is in a prestigious area of town, right, then it says something about your office. If your name is on a building, it says something about your office. So for those reasons, still too, brick and mortar is probably going to still stay in existence, right? There's a reason companies spend millions of dollars branding stadiums, right? Because it says something. It says, I'm successful. Our name is on a stadium, right? So just having, even if your office is a small office and you have a little, shingle, that's what they call a small sign here in America, is a shingle. If you got a shingle hanging off of a small office that people see, right, in their community, then it establishes some imagery and some brand. So, those are things that when you go virtual, it doesn't happen, right? People don't trip over your office virtually.
Yeah.
So then there's a third, right? There's a third option. And the third option is co-working space, right? So co-working is obviously, well, if you're not familiar with co-working is like high quality offices, like they're really nice offices, offices that if you went to go rent on your own, you would be blowing your mind. Like super nice buildings, great locations, A quality, nice furniture, really nice conference rooms, really nice equipment, beautiful kitchens. Some of them have bars. Some of them have movie theaters inside of them. Some of them have gyms. Like they're off the chart, right? Like they're amazing. But the thing about co-working space is you're paying about $40 to $80 per square foot. Wow. So the idea behind co-working space is you're renting a very small office. Like you might rent an office that's like, maybe 6 by 8, right, for one person, a 6 by 8 office. And that 6 by 8 office costs $400 a month, but it includes your internet, your electricity, and your cleaning and your trash, all that stuff, right? You want parking, that's going to be another $30 a month. So there's some layers on that. But if you're running a business and you're trying to operate out of co-working space, the challenge is when you start having employees. Because I don't know about you, right? Well, I do know about you, but I don't know about the rest of you. If you have multiple employees and you stick them in the same room for 40 hours a week, week over week over week, they're going to kill each other. Right?
I was going to say the same thing.
It doesn't work. Right? And if you're trying to have a phone call or you're trying to work and somebody's having a phone call behind you on a headset, Like, I don't know about you, but I'll be trying to write, and my wife will be talking to somebody behind me, and she'll be asking them questions. And in my brain, I'm answering the question.
The questions, yeah.
And I'm typing it. So I'm typing the answer to her question instead of writing what I'm trying to write. So there is a loss in revenue and productivity by moving people into the same office space. So the other issues with co-working space is if you have a large sales team and you have a sales meeting. So if you have a sales team of like 10 or 20 or 15 people and you come together once a week for your sales meeting, in those co-working spaces, you're sharing an office. You might have 1 or 2 conference rooms, maybe a training room, but there's 40, 50 other businesses that are also operating in that co-working space. And they might try to get that same time for you, or they might have an event that day that you normally have your team meeting, and all of a sudden your team meeting's getting displaced because of demand on those joint areas, right? Those areas that are shared, right? The shared workspaces. And that's a big challenge, man. Like, that's a really hard challenge to overcome in co-working space.
Yeah.
So what do you try to do to accommodate that? To accommodate those two challenges, keeping coworkers from fighting and overcome that, is you lease more space. But remember, it's $40 to $80 a square foot, right? You can probably go rent your own office space for $20 to $50. Like $50 a square foot is going to get you a nice office in most of the United States. Like, even in high-end areas, $50 a square foot is going to get you a nice office, right? So you could have your own office space for the same amount of money, if not less, than what you would be at a co-working space if you're running a large sales team. So for those reasons, man, I don't think brick and mortar is going away, right? I don't think it's going away. What's your thoughts?
And yeah, there's just one thing that I also want to add, that on the long term, this office space also works as a business asset. So if you are at some point in your business, if you are, closing down or trying to even move to another location or something, this can be an asset of value, a commercial building. So this is something that could also turn into revenue. And again, it's real estate, so it's appreciating in value too.
If you were to buy it, It always blew my mind that real estate brokerages, because I've been in the real estate brokerage industry, forever, didn't buy. I mean, we're in the real estate business, and most real estate brokerages don't buy their buildings, until I started owning real estate brokerages, and I figured out why. Because it's really hard, because real estate brokerage, your asset is your agent, right? So agents aren't assets on a balance sheet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So when you go to the bank to borrow money, they go, well, what assets do you have? And you go, well, I have this printer, and I have these desks, and I have these phones. Yeah, that's a challenge. It's hard. It's not easy buying your own space when you run a real estate brokerage. I think there's some other industries that it's a little bit easier. I have friends that are in manufacturing. Yeah, manufacturing is mostly, equipment, right? Like, you're spending all this money on equipment, and you need a place to house the equipment. So it makes sense to buy a building to house your equipment, right? It's very logical. But real estate brokerage, it's different. And I wonder if that's true too for other sales industries. I would assume it's probably very similar. So, but if you have the ability to buy your building. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's in a great location. Now, I will say this, moving forward, here's what I think is going to happen. Okay, here's what I think is going to happen. Is if you needed 3,000 square feet before, okay, knowing that you're going to have fewer people in, and when you're going to need the people, like, realistically, in most sales industries, if your salespeople are in the office, they're probably not selling, right? Like, unless they're on the phone all day, they're not selling. You got to have your salespeople out selling. So usually 1 or 2 days a week, you're going to have your team meeting, or you're going to have some kind of training or something where you need to bring your salespeople in and get them trained. So the challenge is you're going to need an office space that's big enough to bring your people together and functional enough to bring them together, but then affordable enough that 80% of the time your profit is still there enough to support the office, even though that office sits mostly empty. Right? And I think that's just it. So it's this balance of having a small office that is conveniently located. It's got brand, it's got image, it's, your customers probably aren't going to come in, but you do need to influence your salespeople so people want to work there, right? But also then offer features as if you're virtual, right? So I think the one thing that the pandemic did do is there used to be this massive gap between virtual companies and then brick and mortar companies. Well, that gap is about this far apart now, right? It's inches apart because the only difference is maybe some level of technology that the virtual companies have adapted, like we were talking about, like EXP, but other companies are not that far behind anymore, right? Like they're literally one software provider behind a virtual company now. And now they have kind of the best of both worlds. They can operate brick and mortar and they can operate virtually just like that, right?
Okay, so
that's it, man. That's my opinion on Office. What do you think?
I think you did a great job.
Thanks. I think about this stuff way too much. So if anybody has comments about it, I'm intrigued to hear what your comments are, what your thoughts are. What your 5-year prediction is. Obviously this year, 2021, we're still dealing with the pandemic. I don't see much change this year. I'm more curious about where do you see it going 5 years from now? Give us a comment. And if you like some of these conversations that we're doing, if you think Mo's good looking, subscribe. Click the subscribe button. Make sure that you help us out and help share it because Mo's single and he's looking for somebody.
Yeah, I am.
Thanks, guys. You guys have a great day.
You too.